Hello, I'm here with my English language learning specialist from Weller Elementary, Mrs. McBride. She's going to share with us some details about how she has seen Imagine Learning work for our kids in our school. Hi,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good, good. So how long do you think that our kids have been using Imagine Learning in Springfield schools?
We implemented it 3 years ago and have been using it pretty consistently for 3 years.
Nice. And what have you noticed and have you seen as far as the difference between whatever was used prior to this 3 years and since the 3 years has started?
Yes. So one major thing is that and they don't have it for all languages, but there's some first language support. So especially for our newcomers, our kids who are coming straight from another country and who usually are just in the very beginner levels of English, they can hear their own language. So that's one really cool feature. And then in general, Imagine Learning's emphasis is on increasing academic vocabulary. And so that is sort of the difference between that and maybe Lexia, where there's obviously a huge focus on literacy in both programs, but this is specific to increasing academic vocabulary, which is the foundation for literacy in general.
Wow, that's amazing. I agree. How does Imagine Learning support English language learners with literacy learning, which I think you kind of just answered that one with the vocabulary foundation. Is there anything else you would add to that?
Not really, other than, and I'll even bring you down to the screen here. It says literacy, which is kind of the top thing, but there's also this oral vocabulary piece. And that's a huge thing for any learner, that their oral vocabulary is high enough to support the literacy. And so that's a huge part of Imagine Learning and helps to provide some foundations for students.
Yeah, and this is one of our own students at Weller, correct?
Correct.
One in my class. Yeah, so we can see just this year, from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, the student has made a very good amount of growth from compared to maybe just what he would do in the classroom without the support.
That's right. And so, always the tricky thing with like programs in general is that it's going to be, the results are going to be better the more consistent kids are. Kids in your room are really consistent about using it. But it's hard, it's hard. They're asked to do a lot of things. And so Imagine Learning, I think we've seen the most success with kiddos who really like it, and the younger kids seem to really like it. And with kiddos who maybe have it on their menus to choose, and it's one of their requirements for their classrooms. So I know, like, our 4th and 5th graders, they are required to do it as part of their literacy rotations. So that has been really, really good and helpful. And I think we're all sort of figuring out how to add things like this into our day. So
yeah, and I know even in my classroom, my students who use this intervention, they're just excited to get on this. They actually ask me when I forget and I put them on Lexia during a rotation. They're like, Mrs. Vanetta, we do Imagine Learning. And so do you notice that they just really enjoy this as well?
Yeah, they actually seem to really enjoy it. I do think that there's a little bit more resistance in the upper grades, but not so much so that I think sometimes they just like to, kind of make a deal about it. So anyway, I have noticed kids really enjoying it. And if sometimes there's opportunities, just like in Lexia, but there's sometimes sometimes we do like a reteaching thing, where if they're stuck in a certain part, let's just say vowel sounds or something, that you can print off and do an interactive activity to sort of boost that skill, so that when they encounter it again with Imagine Learning, they'll be more successful, and they really, really like that. So
yeah, I love that. And you shared with me some research that backs up and kind of why Springfield Public Schools has decided that this was the best intervention to go with. And one that I was reading says it has statistically shown significant positive effects for elementary students and a positive relationship between usage and Lexile growth. What do you think contributes to that that growth? Is it the enjoyment? Is it the foundation of learning? What really do you think leads to that growth?
I think it's all of it. I think that, this is an adaptive software, and so it's really on their level. I think that's one major thing. Also, that contributes to motivation, because some things that happen within the classroom aren't always on the student's level. And so this is a place in which they can be motivated in that way and find success. And I also think that it's because it brings it's academic vocabulary in all the modalities. So we would call the modalities listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And so I don't know if you've noticed this with some of your kids, but sometimes it asks them to read aloud, or it asks them to answer a question. And I can go in there on the back end and listen to them. And so I think making them kind of pull the academic vocabulary through all the modalities is also part of its power.
Absolutely. And I also notice the connection. Like I feel that because it scaffolds the intervention to their native language and then gradually releases them into the English language completely, I feel like they can just connect with it more. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. Yeah. They have pretty engaging characters and storylines too, and I think that's always helpful, to be engaged in all of that. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mrs. McBride, for joining me today and letting me ask you a few questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye.